They brought the human cub to the observation deck, and by the end of the watch 6 predators lay around her in a loose ring, as if the smallest creature on the ship were the safest. The galactic freighter Astral Mercy crossed the dark between systems with its holds full of research cargo, crates of minerals, vials of spores, tanks of algae and microbes for the Interstellar Biological Research Consortium. Everything on the manifest was expected and documented. The human child was not Vorin, the ship's xenobiologist and an insectoid from the Frank species, had protested when he saw the new entry. Humans were classified as apex predators, deathworlders, from a world where almost everything was dangerous. They had forward-facing eyes for tracking, bodies adapted for endurance, and a tendency to form intense bonds with other creatures. She is 3 of their solar cycles old, Captain Zexa had explained, orphaned in the Kepler-4 for to be mining collapse. We are transporting her to the human embassy station. Her name was Lyra. She was small and unsteady, with an oversized head and soft skin that bruised easily. When Vorin first visited her improvised cabin, she watched him so intently that his exoskeleton plates itched, then suddenly smiled and waved. For 2 days she stayed in her room, ate what she was given, and explored the few objects she had. Vorin measured her vital signs, adjusted the gravity, and reminded himself that as long as the door stayed locked, she was not the dangerous one. The real threat was in the lower cargo bay, behind triple reinforced containment fields. The Astral Mercy carried 6 juvenile krashar from the deathworld Crash Prime. Each stood nearly 2 meters tall, armored in black scales with claws that could damage light hull plating. Their pack intelligence made them dangerous even under heavy restraint. They were bound for a xenobiological preserve and did not appreciate the journey. The krashar are escalating, reported Finn, the chief of security, on the 3rd day. Continuous pacing, impact strikes, coordinated probing of the field. We have logged 3 near-breach events. Sedation, Zexa asked. Prolonged sedation at this age risks permanent neural damage. Finn said, the consortium refuses authorization. These specimens are worth more than the ship, the captain muttered. Find another solution. The solution was already in the ventilation ducts. Vorin discovered Lyra's empty cabin during his evening check. The door was still locked from the outside, and the security field glowed steady blue. Only the ventilation panel showed loose screws and tiny fingerprints. He triggered an alert and followed the trail through the maintenance conduits. Heart plates drumming. He found her in the observation bay beside the krashar enclosure. Lyra sat cross-legged on the deck, palms pressed to the transparent aluminum barrier. On the other side, 6 krashar sat in a semicircle facing her. They were not pacing or striking the wall. They were simply watching. Vorin stopped in the doorway. His translator picked up the quiet sound coming from the child, a simple tune, hummed under her breath, rising and falling in a slow pattern. The vibration carried faintly through the deck plates. The pack leader stepped closer to the barrier, head tilted, and released a low rumble. Vorin checked his reference chart out of reflex. The sound did not match any known threat or distress signal. It sounded curious. Lyra paused, looked straight at the predator. and then imitated the sound as best she could. Her version was thinner, but the rhythm matched. Answer, Voren realized. The krashar's tail, previously described in logs as lashing and restless, lowered and lay still. Protocol said he should pull her out at once and strengthen containment. The scientist in him made him stay where he was and watch. Humans, he knew, had domesticated dangerous animals on their homeworld. They had survived in part by turning predators into allies. Lyra was reaching for that same bond here without guidance. Over the next hour, he watched a simple structure of signals form. Lyra hummed, babbled, and tapped patterns on the barrier. The krashar replied with softer rumbles and clicks. When she pressed her hand to the transparent wall, they touched snout or claw to the same point. When she lay down and yawned, they folded into a ring, bodies angled toward her. Report. Captain Zex's voice crackled over Voren's comm. Have you located the human cub? Yes, Captain. Voren said quietly. She is in the observation bay. With the krashar, with explain. Their stress indicators have returned to baseline. Voren replied, no pacing, no impacts. The child appears to have formed a pack bond. By the time Zex arrived, Lyra was asleep on her rolled-up jacket. On the far side of the barrier, the 6 krashar lay in a clear, protective circle, eyes half closed but fixed in her direction. This contradicts every xenobiological model we have. The captain murmured. Humans evolved where befriending predators had survival value, Voren said. She is doing it instinctively. They are accepting it. That formation is defensive. They have placed her at the center of their pack structure. Zexa watched in silence, then made a decision. That ethics panels would later dissect, lower the secondary barrier, he said. Keep the primary containment field, but allow environmental exchange. The inner wall slid down with a hiss. Air from both sides mixed. The pack leader lifted its head, nostrils flaring, then released a deep purr that vibrated through the deck, an unrecorded sound for the species. Lyra stirred, blinked at the dark shapes beyond the barrier, and smiled. For the remaining 6 days of the journey, the ship's routine reshaped itself. Lyra spent most of her time in the observation bay. The krashar stayed calm and attentive. She ate meals by the barrier while they fed on their side. When she slept, they arranged themselves in the same protective circle. There were no more alarms. Voren recorded posture, sent traces, and vocal patterns, knowing that entire fields would have to be rewritten. On final approach to the human embassy station, the bond was tested. Human envoys waited with documents and carefully neutral faces. When Voren picked Lyra up and carried her away from the observation bay, she clung to the barrier and cried, high and desperate. In the cargo bay, all 6 krashar answered with a unified howl that shook dust from the rafters. They are fully bonded, Zexa said softly. Separating them will injure both sides. Voren's mandibles clicked as he chose his words. Captain, request permission to speak with the human representatives, he said. I believe we can design an arrangement that preserves this bond. 3 standard months later, the Interstellar Biological Research Consortium approved an unprecedented protocol. Lyra would be raised at the xenobiological preserve alongside the krashar brood, under Voron's supervision and human oversight. On a mild simulated afternoon, Voron stood beside a sensor cluster and watched a 4-year-old human run through a meadow of engineered grass. 6 towering krashar ran with her, veering and leaping in careful arcs. She laughed. They answered with soft rumbles now tagged in the system as affiliative calls. Where most species saw monsters, humans, somehow, saw family. That evening, as the lights dimmed, Lyra curled up on warmed soil. One by one, the krashar settled around her in the same ring they had formed on the observation deck, bodies making a living wall. In the exact center of 6 of the galaxy's most dangerous juveniles, the fragile deathworld child slept without fear. Voron entered his final note for the cycle. The galaxy has long assumed humanity's greatest danger lies in its capacity for violence. Current evidence suggests their real strength is stranger, an inexhaustible instinct to form bonds, to offer even the deadliest creatures a place in their pack, and in doing so, to turn predators into protectors.